Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It is Monday, December 5th, and I'm Maggie Gray. Football seasons are like snowflakes. Everyone is different. No, those weren't the words of Forrest Gump's mother, but Bill Hancock, the executive director of the College Football Playoff. This year, despite an avalanche of questions about the importance of conference championships, the head-to-head matchups, and the strengths of schedules, the playoff committee has made their decision. Alabama will face Washington in the Peach Bowl. Clemson will take on Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. Both semifinal games will be played on New Year's Eve, with the championship played on Monday, January 9th in Tampa Bay. SI senior writer Pete Thamel is here to talk more about this championship season. Pete, what did we learn in this college football season in terms of criteria for the playoff?
Well, I feel like when Ohio State got in 2 years ago, they got in part because they were a conference champion. Now, there's an important distinction that I think got lost in all the noise around this, and it's this. If you are unequivocally better than another team, which they ruled Ohio State was over Penn State, conference championship doesn't matter. That's a determining factor when you are head-to-head or perceived to be even with a team, and it could nudge you forward. Say one-loss Washington was not a conference champion. Perhaps being a conference champion would have helped Penn State leap over them. So I just think because Ohio State, we have so little data, right? There's only 3 data points on this, and every one is going to evolve different, like snowflakes.
Yeah, like snowflakes. I know you say that Ohio State is better, and we understand that. We can see it. But Penn State really does have the credentials. Even James Franklin, their coach, well, this is what he had to say. He said, "What I do know is we just won the toughest conference in college football. They say you're allowed to overcome early setbacks. We've done just that. It's on you now, the committee." So are you satisfied with the argument to leave Penn State out?
I don't even think it was an argument, to be honest with you. I didn't even watch the show because I thought they had 0 chance of getting in, to be completely honest with you. I just thought they were 7. Or 8. No, they were 7. And they were not going to unseat number 4 that just won its conference championship by 30 points against another top 10 team. Like, there was just no mathematic way you could rationalize doing that with an extra loss. So, to me, Penn State was a little bit contrived noise, Maggie, just to, like, gussy up some discussion for the selection show. They lost 2 games. They got blown off the field in one of those games. Washington had one very good loss to an excellent USC team, a top 10 loss. And they had 2 losses to a top 10 team and a top 25 team. The resume just didn't add up. Penn State only beat 2 top 25 teams this year. So I didn't really think Penn State had an argument. I never considered it an argument.
Yeah, even with the comeback win against Wisconsin.
It was a great win.
And being another quality win. It
was a great win. Here's the thing, like, it's an interesting point. Like, we're like conference champions. What are conferences now? Iowa's in the same conference as Rutgers. Like, conferences are like sort of shotgun arrangements built around cable boxes. They're not like these things that they used to be that were intertwined, and you could actually definitively say if you won the conference, you're the best team in the conference, because not everybody plays each other.
Okay, but what's going to happen in the future? I mean, we have a lot of conference realignment, but
there'll be a new snowflake.
And we'll have to argue all about it. Okay, well, the things that we know. Let's break down the games that are actually going to happen. And let's start with Alabama and Washington. The Tide, they open up as a 14.5-point favorite. Is there any way that Washington can beat them? What's the path to victory here?
I feel like the playoff this year, Maggie, it's Alabama and everybody else. I don't think anyone beats Alabama. And Clemson may have the best chance because they have the dynamic quarterback, but I don't think anyone finishes within 2 touchdowns of Alabama in this playoff. I really feel like they are that definitive of a favorite. Chris Peterson's an unbelievable coach. Washington is an excellent football team, but they are really just a less physical, talented version of Alabama, and I think they'll get pushed up and down the field like USC pushed them up and down the field in Seattle that night. Washington's essentially 2 best defensive players, 2 of their 3 best defensive players are out for the year. And I just think, I asked Chris Peterson about this in Seattle a couple weeks ago. I said, when does your program get to a point where you can absorb that caliber of losses, your best linebacker, your best DN? And his answer was very telling. He said, I don't think anyone can do that except Alabama.
Okay, and that's who they're going to be facing. So who do you think they will be facing in the championship game?
I really feel like the best game that we're going to see in the college football playoff, Maggie, is going to be Ohio State and Clemson. You have 2 of the most decorated quarterbacks in college football. You have the sort of established program, and then Clemson is rising into that upper establishment of college football. Like, what a fun matchup. Teams that play wide open. You've got Ohio State's identity this year is interesting. When you think of Urban Meyer's teams, you think of spread offenses and dynamic and scoring points, and they've certainly done that. They lead the Big Ten in scoring. But when the rubber has hit the road this year, in the games that really matter, they've been a defensive identity team. I mean, they don't beat Michigan without a pick six and another interception returned right to the goal line. And I feel like they're almost going to have to channel the inner Jim Tressel of field position punt defense in order to win this game, and they would certainly have to play that way against Alabama because I don't give their offense much of a chance of scoring.
Okay, so who wins this game?
I feel like Ohio State wins a really close game,
okay.
Like a 31-28 kind of situation against Clemson. But I would not be surprised if Clemson won. The key matchup there is Clemson's defensive line is elite, elite, elite. Ohio State's offensive line has been porous against high-end competition this year. Michigan had 13 TFLs and 8 sacks in that game. I mean, that's just a jarring number. And the right tackle, Isaiah Prince, has been a problem for Ohio State in big games against big competition all year. If Ohio State doesn't fix that line, they won't be able to move the ball. And Clemson could really give a push. If they can overcome that and scheme around it, I think they'll win.
Okay, so in your estimation, we're going to have an Urban Meyer and Nick Saban final again. Last time they met in this playoff, Urban Meyer won. Interesting stuff.
I remember.
You do remember that one.
Ezekiel Elliott down the left side. And that really changed everything. When we talk about now the Big Ten, rising to be the best conference in college football, there is a concise pivot point to where everything changed in college football. It's very interesting. Zeke looked like he didn't have a hole, and then he was gone. And he's still running.
And he's still running and could be not only Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL, but also the league's MVP in his rookie season. Pete Thamel, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Maggie, thank you.
As for the NFL, the first postseason berth was clinched on Sunday by who else but those Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott. They've locked up a playoff spot. For more of what we saw in Week 13, here are Ryan Aselta and Super Bowl champion Chris Canty. Hey, guys.
All right, Maggie, it is beginning to look a lot like the playoffs here, and we are getting you ready with the Redskins loss. Chris, the Cowboys are the first team to secure a playoff berth. We're going to talk about a few NFC playoff teams or possible playoff teams, quick hitting, and let's start with those Cowboys who clinched that playoff spot. Should the Cowboys be considered the favorite in the NFL as a whole right now?
I think you have to. The way that they're playing complementary football, their defense bending but not breaking, not limiting possessions, opportunities to score in the red zone for opposing teams, and their offense being able to possess the ball. Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, what they've been able to do behind that offensive line. A lot of success, what they've been doing. I think you've got to consider them the favorite in the NFC.
All right, let's talk about the Bucs. They win in San Diego. Atlanta loses at home to Kansas City. Tampa Bay breathing down the Falcons' neck. Can they catch Atlanta in the NFC South?
Of course they can catch Atlanta. They split the regular season series. Atlanta won 1, Tampa Bay won 1, and now the division is up for grabs between those two teams. The Bucs are riding a 4-game winning streak, and you've got to be impressed with what they've been able to do, beating the Seattle Seahawks and beating the Kansas City Chiefs along the way. Of course, they had a big win on the road against San Diego yesterday. So impressed by what Jameis Winston and this young Buccaneers football team is doing, and with each passing week, they keep getting more confidence. So this is a team that you want to watch out for, and I'm sure the Atlanta Falcons wish that they would have handled their business yesterday against Kansas City.
All right, let's move on to Joe Flacco's career day with the Ravens. Flacco throws for 4 touchdowns in Baltimore's beatdown of the Dolphins. It's a 2-game winning streak, 4-1 in the last 5 games. Is this Ravens team for real, Chris?
Yeah, you got to consider them being for real. Their defense is at the top of the National Football League. They're able to take the football away. As long as Joe Flacco and that offense, they don't give it away, I think this team is going to be successful. Now, you saw the interception from Joe, and you saw the fumble from Dennis Pitta, but Joe Flacco throws for almost 400 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns. They're getting everybody involved. Everybody's getting able to touch the football, being able to make plays. You got to like what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball in terms of being able to create tempo, more urgency, make it tougher on defenses to be able to neutralize their playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. So I know that's a focus. Joe Flacco was talking to offensive coordinator Marty Morningwig about being more aggressive, and you're starting to see them do that now on the offensive side of the ball.
Tough sledding ahead for this team, though. 3 of their final 4 games are on the road. That begins this week at New England against the Patriots. And speaking of those Patriots, no Gronk, no problem for New England. Pats have their way with the listless Rams as New England improves to 10-2 on the season. Chris, what did we learn about how New England's going to move forward without Gronkowski in their lineup?
We learned that it's not going to be much of a problem for Bill Belichick and offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. They were explosive yesterday against a pretty good front 7 in the Los Angeles Rams on the defensive side of the ball. So they're being able to spread the ball around to guys like Deion Lewis, Martellus Bennett, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, Chris Hogan. They've got a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. They can adapt their system to be able to take advantage of the deficiencies of their opponents. That's something that Bill Belichick does very well. He doesn't ask his players to do things they're not good at. He only wants to accentuate the positives when it comes to their skill sets, and you continue to do that, and you saw that yesterday.
Speak about deficiencies. Well, let's talk about the LA Rams.
Oh, yeah. A lot of deficiencies with the LA Rams.
It's a team that is 4-8 this season. The news comes out before yesterday's game that Jeff Fisher's been given a 2-year contract extension in LA. He's never had a winning season with the Rams, Chris. Does it surprise you that they're sticking with him?
It does. I just want to know who Jeff Fisher's agent is, because maybe I need to hire him.
There is an inside connection with the team.
I'm just telling you, that guy is getting them paid for limited production. When you look at Jeff Fisher's coaching record, only 6 winning seasons over the course of 22 years of coaching. And none with the Los Angeles Rams. I don't understand the move. When you look at their record over the past 4 years, 7-9, 6-10, 7-9, and now 4-8. It's unbelievable. It's unprecedented. But I guess with the move, the transition from St. Louis to LA, they want to keep some type of continuity within the organization with the coaching staff and the general manager. And I will say this, continuity generally leads to success in the National Football League. But you got to have some type of production on the field. And right now, Jeff Fisher's production is lacking in terms of being a head coach in the NFL.
And he's upsetting one of the greatest Rams of all time, in Eric Dickerson, who wasn't given passes to get into a recent game because he was critical.
How can you tell Eric Dickerson to stay away?
Hey,
I don't even
Jeff
understand.
Fisher is the Teflon Don in LA right now, and that we're learning that quickly. All right, our last topic, the Seattle Seahawks win, but it was costly. Earl Thomas breaks his lower leg. How big is this blow? And Earl on Twitter last night even hinted that he's considering retirement.
Well, yeah, that's something else that gives you a little bit of pause when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, because he's the guy on the back end that's the big communicator in terms of establishing the coverages, making sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody understands how they're going to match up to the offensive sets. So when you lose that communicator on the back end, and especially that type of ball hawk safety, it's definitely going to be a blow for your defense. That being said, the Seattle Seahawks have a next man up approach. I think they have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. They'll find a way to rally in the absence of Earl Thomas. But, you know, as you saw the tweet, this could be something that's long-term. He's considering retirement. And when you start talking about the physical toll that it takes to play in 16-game regular season in the NFL, you can understand why guys are leaning more towards retiring early. But certainly Earl Thomas is a tremendous talent. If he's going to be out of that lineup for an extended period of time, they're going to miss him.
This was a Seattle beatdown of the Panthers from the very first snap when Derek Anderson started the game and threw an interception. Let's talk about that. Cam Newton, apparently he didn't have a tie to wear. He was benched for uniform violations leading into this game. Is there a bigger issue there? Has the shine of Cam Newton kind of worn off in Charlotte?
No, I'm not going to take it that far, but I think Coach Ron Rivera is old school. He's established a culture in terms of who they are within the organization, who the Carolina Panthers are going to be, how they're going to go about their business. And if you have to have a tie on the team playing, going out to Seattle, then that's what you have to do. And there are no exceptions, even when it comes to the defending MVP, Cam Newton. So you've got to set an example. You've got to be consistent in terms of how you discipline players. I heard Jimmy Johnson say you're not going to treat them all the same, but you treat them fairly. And in this situation, he decided that he was going to bench Cam early in the game. And I think it was the appropriate message to send to the rest of the locker room, no matter what our record is. And that gives Ron Rivera a lot of credibility with the other 52 guys on that roster and in that locker room.
All right, well, we talked about the cream of the crop. It has certainly risen to the top in Week 13 when you talk about the Cowboys, Seahawks, Patriots. Clearly, they are the elite as we start inching towards the playoffs. Maggie?
Thank you, guys. As for the football that's played on the pitch, 2 of the biggest clubs in Major League Soccer will be playing for the championship this Saturday. Those clubs, Toronto and Seattle. You knew that, of course. The man calling the action is John Strong of Fox Sports, and he joins me now. Okay, these are 2 of the strongest teams in Major League Soccer, but they're playing for their first ever MLS Cup. Tell us about the path to get here, John. What are the more interesting points that these 2 teams have on their way to this championship?
Yeah, because it's kind of a paradox, because Toronto have been this big club, and they burst onto the scene in 2007, and they had the crowds no one had ever seen, an atmosphere no one had ever seen. They sort of pushed MLS away from a suburban mindset to let's build our stadiums downtown, let's appeal to young adults and get atmospheres as a result. But they were, like the Maple Leafs, with whom they share ownership, completely dysfunctional for a very long time. And Greg Vanney, who's the coach now, was their 9th coach in 8 years. But they finally figured it out, and they got the right pieces in. They didn't panic last year when they bombed out in the first round of the playoffs. and everything has gone right for them, and they have been lights out in the playoffs. And Seattle, consistently good. They came into the league in 2009. They were in the playoffs every year. They won the U.S. Open Cup. They won Supporter Shield. And this year it looked like, okay, finally, let's blow it up and take it down to the brass tacks. And they were second from last place in July. And they bring in a new coach who was their assistant. They bring in a new playmaker, Nicholas Lodeiro, and they have been on fire since. And so this was the last year we really expected to see Seattle actually get over the hump. And for the first time in MLS history, 21 years in, 2 of its expansion teams are playing off for the final, which is very neat.
That's so exciting. What are some of the keys to this game? What do you think is going to determine who brings home the MLS Cup?
Each team has very talented individuals. Sebastian Giovinco for Toronto has put up numbers we'd never seen in MLS, and he could have easily been MVP twice in a row. Josie Altidore, both for the U.S. national team as well as for Toronto, has been playing phenomenally. Michael Bradley's the captain of the national team for a reason. For Seattle, Jordan Morris, Rookie of the Year. He's the next big star in American soccer. Nicholas Lodeiro has had a wonderful half season, was the newcomer of the year. Both teams, though, are stocked with you need those veteran guys that have been around, that have seen it all. You've got multiple MLS Cup winners on both sides. For me, I think it's going to come down to just who can play the game on their terms. These are 2 teams that want to come out and play soccer, as opposed to a Colorado or a Montreal who lost in the conference championships, somewhat more defensive-minded, more counterattack-minded. Both these teams want to come out and play. Both have sort of dealt with crazy things happening very well. So I guess who can better impose themselves? We go, okay, this is definitely Seattle's game. Look at Lodeiro. Or we go, this is definitely Toronto's game. Giovinco's all over the place.
Okay, this is a game that's going to be played in Toronto. Major home field advantage for Toronto FC. We saw last year, though, the road team was able to go into an opponent's stadium and bring home the cup. So how can the Sounders build on that recent history, or is this going to be too much to overcome?
Yeah, I think it's 4 out of the 6 when it's been played at the stadium of the home team, whether it's been deliberate or not, they have prevailed. And Portland beating Columbus in Columbus last year was the exception. Seattle's been very good away from home. They went into Dallas, got the result they needed. They were the only team all year to beat Colorado away in the second leg of the Western Conference Final. I don't think they're going to be too fazed by it. The atmospheres in Toronto, as much as they have 36,000, and we would probably have had 66,000, a full CenturyLink field had the final been there. But that atmosphere is amazing. Where we were in the press box last Wednesday calling the game, Brad Friedel and I, we were swaying back and forth.
Jeez.
They were so loud, and they were stomping their feet in extra time. It was amazing. So, but I think the atmosphere, the conditions, it'll be below freezing. There might be snow. I don't think Seattle, for what they've dealt with this year, for what they've been through, and their ability to rise to the occasion, they won in L.A. No one beats the Galaxy in L.A. I don't think they're going to be fazed by it. So I don't think it's going to be a factor.
And you're going to have that window open, right? I mean,
100%.
You got to go.
Listen, we get extremes in MLS. I've called games in Kansas City when it's 110 heat index. I called a game in Kansas City a couple years ago. It was 15 degrees at kickoff. So
Yeah,
I'm thrilled. Windows open.
Yeah, that's fun.
Bring it on. It'll be great.
Which U.S. forward has been more impressive and actually more important to their team? Is it Josie Altidore for Toronto, or is it Jordan Morris, the Rookie of the Year for Seattle?
That's a tough one. Josie's been phenomenal. I mean, and you ask him, is this the best you've ever played in your life? And he gets horribly offended by that question, because a couple years ago in the Netherlands, he was scoring goals for fun every single game. But this is a man who's had a couple years of hamstring injuries. He lost a World Cup, a Gold Cup, and a Copa America to hamstring problems, and they finally figured it out. And you see how much of a factor he is, even in the final goal they scored last Wednesday night. He holds the ball up, he holds off his man, he delivers a great cross. Jordan Morris, for me, though, has been so important for Seattle. He was already coming in. They lost Obafemi Martins, one of their star forwards. That's the amazing thing. Seattle, this run they've been on, they've done most of it without Clint Dempsey.
Yeah.
He is one of the few American soccer players that people who aren't soccer fans in this country know. He's been out since August with an irregular heartbeat. He might not return. They're still not sure. He's got to worry about his wife and his family. And so Jordan Morris has come in from a rookie season in which people are like, why are you coming to MLS and not going to Germany? Why aren't you scoring goals? Why are you missing these chances? And he's got the second most goals for a rookie in MLS history, the most game winners for a rookie in MLS history, and he has embraced being the face of his hometown team, which is a really fun trend in MLS, that you have local kids growing up. And unlike in other sports where He would have gone to the draft, a national title winner out of Stanford, and maybe gone somewhere else. Seattle signs him directly. He's in his hometown. He's the face of that team.
It's really amazing. We cannot wait for this MLS Cup final. It's going to be on this Saturday on Fox, and you're going to be calling the action. And actually, since 2008, this is the first time it's going to be on network television in English. So
amazingly exciting.
Great for us.
We're pulling out all the stops. We got a preview show Friday night on FS1. Big window of coverage, and of course, it's the first Saturday we've had since August without college football. So it's
Way to
wonderful
capitalize.
what our bosses have done to really make this feel like a big deal. It'll be a lot of fun.
No, it is a big deal, and we appreciate it. Good luck on the call in that 0-degree weather. We'll be watching at home, toasty and warm. That's going to do it for this Monday episode of SI Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern with two-time national champion coach of the year and coach of the year, Bobby Bowden of the Florida State Seminoles. That will be fun. But until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.